Hello, my name is Seth O'Brien. I'm the HIP manager for AVCP's Housing Improvement Program, and I hope to answer your questions today about the program, namely why we apply for the program and how to apply for the program. And I just want to clarify who we are and who we are not. Uh, a lot of people get us confused with AVCP Regional Housing Authority. They are the largest housing provider in our region, and they operate solely housing programs, and that is their main focus in our region. AVCP Inc., and you can see our link, our logo here in the top right corner of the screen. AVCP Inc. operates many different kinds of programs, including TANF, Head Start, Tribal Workforce Development, the VPSO program, Housing Improvement Program, to name a few. So we are just one program here at AVCP Inc., and the program staff in this program consists of myself as the HIP manager and Willie DeBeeklik, our HIP construction coordinator. These are our only full-time staff. Here we are in Good News Bay last year in 2023, where Willie and his crew completed two new units, two houses, and that is what we do. We implement new home construction, category C. There are other categories of assistance within the HIP program. However, the regulations make those categories impossible to operate in our region unless if those regulations can be changed or waived. So what is feasible for us to do is to do new home construction. So that is the focus of our program here in the AVCP region. So here's the AVCP region. Assuming if you're watching this video, you're from our region. My mother is from Macoriac, so I'm a Macoriac tribal member, and I'm a native to the region, lived here my whole life. And so, of course, here's our region of Southwest Alaska, ABCP, or the YK region. And here on the screen are a list of tribes. These are the tribes that are enrolled at Compact with ABCP Inc. to operate the BIA HIP program on their behalf. So it's a BIA program, it's a federal program, but ABCP facilitates the program on the behalf of tribes that want us to do so and that have made that decision to compact. So if you are enrolled with one of these tribes listed, we have Alakanak, Atmahook, Fillmore Slough, etc. If you're enrolled with any of the tribes here on the screen, continue watching the video because ABCP Inc. is the one that will operate the HIP program on behalf of your tribe. So that to be eligible through ABCP Inc., you must be enrolled with one of these tribes. Point of clarification, to be eligible, you do need to live in our service area. That's this orange area, the region, the ABCP region. You need to live in this area. However, you do not necessarily need to live in the tribe or village that you are enrolled with. You just have to be enrolled. For example, if somebody's a Mohlok tribal member that lives in Bethel, they are still eligible to apply because they live in the service area and they are enrolled with Atmahlok, which is a compacted tribe. If you're watching the video and you are not enrolled with one of these tribes, you're still welcome to watch the video for uh, information on how to apply. However, ABCP Inc. could not award you or provide assistance to you through this program because your tribe has opted to be independent. So you would contact your local tribal office for assistance. And if you're a tribal leader, maybe new to the position, or you just haven't worked on the HIP program for some time, a lot of tribes, you know, are not operating the program. They don't have a person like myself that's actually collecting applications and running the program. If you want more information on how you can operate the program better, or if you're interested in possibly compacting with us, I would suggest you contacting BIA housing manager or housing specialist Dwayne Cooper, and here his phone number and email are right here. So a lot of people wonder, is it even worth my time to apply? Should I apply? And I would say even if you're not likely to receive an award or or you're debating whether or not you'll be eligible under the income guidelines, I would encourage you to apply as long as you're enrolled with one of those compacted tribes on the previous slide. And the reason is as we get more applications, you see the stack of applications icon here, that generates more funding. That's where the money comes from. Stacks of applications, lots of people applying, that generates the funding. We are competing with all these other funding requests at Congress and a lot of other needs for tribes throughout the nation, actually. And so, if our region collects a high quantity of applications, we generate a higher amount of funding for our region, and that in turn will ultimately generate more housing. And again, the BIA HIP program is a small program, so with myself and another staff member here, we might get enough funding for 3 homes per year if we collect a lot of applications. For example, in 2020, when I started, ABCP was awarded about 3 award amounts to construct 3 new homes, and that was with submitting a tribal annual performance report, which I'll get to later. That was, we submitted a waiting list, in other words, of 1,200 applicants, and that generated enough funding for about 3 homes, which I know is a small percentage, but if we had not submitted that many applications, we would not have received any or as much funding. So even though we have to submit lots of applications to get funding, if we don't submit any applications, we don't get any funding. So we must prove the need on paper. I know we all see our villages and we know that the government knows we need help, but we have to continue to put the need down, to document the need on paper every year. So please apply if you're from one of those villages on the previous, or one of those tribes on the previous slide. You'll determine how much documents to include initially. It's a once a year cycle. All of these applications are logged into a database and sent to the BIA on or before December 31st of each year. So it's a once a year cycle. Your application is good for 4 years after you apply. You do not have to apply every year. We do make a big push to get applications each year because there's a submittal once a year for new funding. But if you've applied, your application stays valid for 4 program years. So here's the income guidelines to be eligible for the program. Again, even if you don't feel you would fall within the guidelines here, we encourage you to apply. And if you don't actually prove that you're over income, we can still include your application as a tribal member, which generates funding for our region. I'm not telling you not to prove you're over income, but I'm just saying if you don't actually get your 1040s W-2s for all the adults in the household to prove that you're over income, we would still be able to include you on our tribal annual performance report, and your application generates funding. But this is for if you want to know if you have any remote chance at all of being selected for the program. There is an income threshold. These are the poverty income guidelines for Alaska, and HIP applicants must be below that 150% threshold, depending on household size, to be eligible. And this is the tricky part: is this does include all of your earned and unearned income for the household you're reporting for. So Social Security, TANF, as well as regular employment wages, they all are cumulative in these amounts. So if you have a family of 6, for example, the maximum amount the whole household could make in earned and unearned income would be $75,541. Anything above that, you would be considered ineligible for the program. But I would still want you to apply so that we can increase funding for our region. So this is, if you want to know from at a snapshot, think about how many people are in your household. Now, people living under the same roof could be considered a household, or people that are in a family unit, a nuclear family, because I know we have such overcrowding issues in our region. We could have 3 families living under roof, and let's say there's 13 people living under the same roof. if you included all of the adults and all of the income, even unearned income for every individual in that home, chances are you could be over income because we know that the cost of living is so high in the region, and when you know, when you include the earned income as well as unearned income, chances are you could go over the threshold. So if it would, if you're, for example, if you have elderly parents and they get Social Security, which would count against you, and you have children and you have maybe an aunt and or a cousin, others living in the home, I would just suggest that you apply for your household, your family. It says family size here on the size, not necessarily everyone living under the same roof. If you have a spouse and children, there's say you have a spouse and three children, there's five of you. You can apply for the five of you and use these income guidelines. Now, the five of you would be if selected, only the five of you are being awarded a house, not the whole household. They would stay. They would the other members, extended family, would stay in the previous house in theory. So you can apply for your household size. Now it could be the whole household, as I mentioned before. If everyone together, if your application would be better and you all need to move out, like the house is falling apart and everybody needs to move. But just note that these are the income guidelines based on the family size. Give me one moment. I'm going to turn to my notes here. And there are some disqualifying factors, even if you are an enrolled tribal member. These would be things that make you ineligible to receive an award through the Housing Improvement Program. But I would still encourage you to apply again so that your application can be counted towards the region's need, because we only get as much funding as we document, and we need all hands on deck for that purpose. But just so there are a lot of people that apply and they wonder why they're not selected, and these are the main reasons why people would be deemed ineligible and not qualify for assistance. One being, of course, that they're over income based on that previous sheet I just showed. Another example is they do not live in our region. Maybe they live in Unalakleet or in Anchorage or in Togiak. Those are communities that are not within our service region. Even if they're an enrolled tribal member, they would have to be a permanent resident. They would have to be living full time in the region to qualify for assistance, for HIP assistance. It's a one-time assistance, so if you've ever received HIP assistance before, you cannot receive it again. It's a one-time. So if somebody was, even if it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it's a one-time assistance program. We can only build one house, and you can't receive another house through the same program. Another common one that disqualifies people is if they own a home that was built within the past 20 years by a federal government sponsored housing program. The most common in our region, of course, would be ABCP Housing Authority. They're funded by HUD, NAHASDA funding, and if if a tribal member owns a home that's less than 20 years old, for example, if they live in a home that was built in 2005, the program regulations, the 25 CFR Part 256, the HIP regulations, would stipulate they cannot receive assistance through HIP because they would call it double dipping. They've already received federal housing assistance through ABCP Housing Authority, even though they're different funding sources. They're both for low-income tribal, Indian, and Native American housing needs. So if that's the case with you, have a family member. If it's overcrowded in your household and you own the home, it's a newer, less than 20 years old housing authority home. If you have a niece and her husband living in the home, they can apply for their family, and that way, if they were awarded, they could move out. So it's still an option for people in your household to apply if you're the owner. But you yourself, if you own an ABCP Housing Authority home, could not apply, or you could apply for HIP. We need your application, but we would not be able to award you. This is a snapshot from our tribal annual performance report. This is the Excel spreadsheet that we enter in all the application data each year, and we send that to the BIA, and we follow a scoring criteria. And so it's important that you submit your supportive documents if you're seriously pursuing an award with us, because that's what generates points. We follow a priority ranking criteria, and so that whoever is awarded in theory gets is the person with the most need. Of course, we all need it. We see the need in our tribes, our region, but whoever can document the highest need through these different factors is who will be awarded. And we don't make that call. We just follow the formula in our priority calculation form. For example, elderly, you get some points for if you have aged people over 55. Um, Disability, and if you can prove that and verify that, there's points awarded for that. Income, based on that income spreadsheet I showed earlier, you'll get a certain amount of points if you're under income. Dependents, you get 3 points for every child under 18 that's dependent on you in the household. Some points for whether you don't own the home, whether the house is dilapidated, whether there's overcrowding, etc. So you have to verify a lot of these things to prove the score. And of course, all of these get entered and go onto the priority list in the tribal annual performance report, which is like the waiting list, if in layman's terms, that shows the BIA just the whole list of everybody in our region, the hundreds of people that are applying, and where they would fall on this list based on their reported needs and what they're claiming on the application. So you might want to take a picture of this if you're watching. If you're not sure where to get an application, there's several means, and here's a screenshot of the first page of the application. It's the BIA form 6407. One simple way to get a hard copy application is often just to go to your local tribal office. They carry these applications, most of them, and when I visit a tribe and they don't have any, I print out a bunch more and leave them with the tribe for tribal members. So a lot of them have like a little wall hanger somewhere where these applications are accessible. Just ask for a HIP application or a BIA housing application. A lot of times the tribal workers know where they are and can get you one. If that doesn't work, you can get in touch with us. The main line here at ABCP Inc. is 543-7300, 907-543-7300, and ask for HIP. They'll get you transferred to me and or whoever is managing the HIP program if I'm not here at some later date, for example. But my main line here, I put it there for you, is 543-7468, and I can get your information and get you an application. If you would rather email instead of call, you can send an email to the hip@abcp.org email and request an application and how you would like to get that application back. I would get emails sent to that group email, as well as anybody in the future that works for HIP would get the same email sent to that group email. Or very simple, you can access a printable online application through the link here, and I've included this link, and I'll also put this at the end of the presentation so that you can easily access that online and print it. Where would you send your application? I've listed all the different ways that you can submit an application to us when your application is complete, or when it's as complete as you can make it. There's our mailing address. A lot of people choose to mail, so just write that onto the envelope and send it to that address there, and we'll get it and confirm with you that we received it. You can fax it to us. Here's our fax number. And if you'd rather email, again, here's our email address, and we'll respond when we receive applications, let you know that we've received them okay. And then of course you could deliver it to us in person here in Bethel at 573rd Avenue. I included a Google Earth screenshot, but maybe easier would just be to explain we're right in between Snack Shack and the old Nicholson's gas station, which is now Delta Western. So right there at the cross of 3rd and Main, so next to Snack Shack. I'm now going to go step by step through the application and provide clarification on sections that do trip applicants up. Make sure you have all the information to fill out the application correctly. Again, if you are an applicant, you're enrolled with one of those compacted tribes, but you don't think you'll be eligible based on income, or you already own a newer housing authority home, those kinds of things, please still apply because your application will generate funding. You just don't need to provide all the supportive documents because you won't be selected. But if you fill out the bare minimum of the application, basically, if you were to fill out the first page even and prove that you're a tribal member with your enrollment number, and you were to sign the last page of the application, we would be able to count your application on the annual performance report that goes to BIA, and your application would help generate more funding for the region. But for those of you that really are legitimately trying and you want to be considered, there's hundreds of applicants, but there's a chance that you could be selected. I'm going to give you all the information to apply for the whole application, all the supportive documents you would need to submit to have a complete application. So, first 5 questions are self-explanatory. Question 6, the tribe and enrollment number. That's where you list the compacted tribe that you're enrolled with and your enrollment number, and you need to provide a copy of your tribal ID. If you don't have that, then a tribal enrollment verification form or official letter from your tribe proving you are a tribal member. We need to see that you are in fact enrolled as the applicant with a compacted tribe. And then going down to question 8, are you homeless? This often trips applicants up because they think, is the application asking if I live on the street? Most of us don't. But what it's really asking is, do you own a home or not? In our region, a lot of people are living with family, nowhere else to go, so they're overcrowding into what housing is available with family. And so that's what it's really asking. So if you're living with family, you don't own a home, say yes to question 8. Are you homeless? You'd say yes if you don't own a home. Question 9, are you or your spouse a veteran? If you are, or your spouse, then you have to provide documentation to prove that. And then of course fill out the information for spouse, questions 10 through 13. Only one of you needs to be enrolled with a compact tribe to qualify. So have whoever the compact spouse, whichever spouse is enrolled with a compacted tribe, have them be the main applicant, and then if you're the non-compact spouse, you'd go under this second as the secondary applicant under the spouse section. And then for family information, they're at the bottom. Fill this out to the best of your ability. I don't know that we have to see every social security or enrollment number. I've not seen that in the regulations, but it is on the application. So fill it out to the best of your ability. This is to see that there, whatever number of people you're claiming in the household to prove this. Now, point of clarification. In our region, if you have 14 people living in a household, 3 different families, multi-generations in that home, you don't have to list all of them unless if you want to. If the house is falling apart and you all would need to move and you think you would still be under income, then list everybody. But let me give you an example. If you have grandma and grandpa own the home, elders, and then adult children with kids are living in the home also because they have nowhere else, and then you got a couple cousins and auntie and uncle living in the household, you wouldn't have to list everybody if you're the parent or mother or father of that nuclear family. Just apply, for example, if it's yourself, a spouse, and 4 children that are under 18, apply for you as that nuclear family, and then the elders, your parents or parents-in-law and auntie, uncle, they don't have to be on there if they would make you over income, or if they wouldn't move with you. They would stay in the house, and you're applying to get your own house. So just include your household, your family, your immediate family, because underrun roof in our region doesn't really translate to a household. There's several households within that household or within that under that roof. So it just depends. If you want everyone to move and you would still be under income, list all 10 of you or 12 of you. But if you just want your immediate family, your household, to have their own home, and you would move out if selected, that's who you would list. So moving on to page 2, this is where it's going to get into asking for income. The first section is earned income. So all the adults that you listed on page 1, you would need to list their earned income, any employment for the previous, most recent year. So it's 2024. If you're applying right now, this would be for last year's employment, 2023. You would list your name of the adult, the income for the year in the annual earned income section, and then the source of the income, the employment, the employer would be the source. And you need to prove it for each adult in the household. You would need to prove what you're listing here as your earned income. You document it with a 1040 tax form, because that 1040 tax form will have your gross income, your adjusted income listed there. So we need a copy of that for each adult, or if you're applying for you and a spouse, then that joint, if you apply jointly, then that 1040 for the both of you. And we need W-2s for each adult that worked. The application does say wage stubs here, so the only way that wage stub would suffice would be if it's the last wage stub for the year, like the end of December, and it shows the cumulative income for the whole year. But a W-2 serves that purpose already, so a W-2 is preferable. But we need a 1040 and a W-2 for each adult in the household that worked. If you have adults in the household that did not work, elders, or just if you didn't happen to work, then you would need to prove that with a signed notarized statement of no income. And I've included an example here below. It's a very generic one that would work, and you can use the same format. It could be handwritten, even just following the format of I, then list your name. I, John Doe, did not file taxes in 2023, as I did not work or receive earned income during 2023. I certify this statement is true and accurate. Sign it, date it, and then a notary would sign and stamp it, date it. And then section 15, unearned income. So if you are not detectives, but you be honest and list any unearned income that your household receives, whether it's Social Security or TANF, retirement, those types of things, you would list there. Each source of income listed separately, and then you would total up your unearned income out, and your earned income in section 14, you would total all of those, and then in section 16 is where you combine. There in the middle, you'd combine all of the income, both earned and unearned, for every adult member in the household, and that's where you would write here the total. That's your cumulative household income, which needs to be within the threshold that I showed on slide 2, whatever the slide was with the income, to be eligible for HIP. And section 17-18 describe the issues. Remember, this HIP only covers replacement housing, so if you have an old house, or even if it's not that old, but you would be okay with it being replaced, to being demolished and being replaced with a new, better home, you can note that here in section 17 and 18. Then section 19, fill that. 20, overcrowded, you can say yes if in your opinion, the house is overcrowded. There's no regulation to quantify that. Just, we'll take your word for it. And question 21, is the home in a dilapidated state, meaning is the home in beyond reasonable repair? Like it's going to cost a lot. It's pretty old. There's a lot of issues. That's up to you to determine. But that's the only way we could replace it. If you're the homeowner and you're applying, we could replace it if it's dilapidated. And if you're not a homeowner, it doesn't matter if it's dilapidated. If you're living with family, we can build you a new home if you're the one who's selected, in theory. Moving on to page 3, you'll see the housing information section here at the top. Just go through these. These are pretty self-explanatory. One note here on section 25, the square footage. Just estimate the best that you can. I recognize most people won't know the exact square footage of the house they're living in off the top of their head, and that's okay, because we really don't factor that into the score of the application or anything. They just want to know uh, information about your house. So fill that section in there, housing information at the top. And then we get to the land information. This section is often the most confusing, but just do your best. Um, it's asking if you own land, just answer that truthfully. If you don't own land, can you provide proof that you can obtain land? Somebody else that owns land in the tribe or in the village. And if it's not a family member, then does the city have open lots that are developed? Does the corporation or the tribe have any open lots? If and then question 28, what's the current status of the land? Just pick one of those that fits best. And then question 29, if you don't own land, can you obtain leasehold interest? That's just could you lease land? Because our regulations do permit an applicant to get a lease on a lot of land, 25 years or longer. That will suffice just as if they owned a deed to a lot of land. Again, a lot of people are believe they have land or a family that has land, but getting the documentation can be a challenge. So talk with your city land planner if you don't have that documentation. If your family member doesn't have it, talk to your land planner, or you can call me. I can actually look your name up in the Department of Natural Resources website. They do keep track of deeds and leases and other legal documents there. You can look up my house, my lot there as well. It's public information. It has to be developed land. We can't build for somebody off in the tundra. We don't have the funds in this program to build the roads, the utilities to that lot of land. So it needs to be land that's already near developed roads, the PVEC poles, water, sewer, if relevant for your community, the water sewer pipes. So that's the land is often a big hurdle for folks, but you're gonna have to figure that out. I wish the BIA program had lots that were available that we could just grant to the best applicants, but that's not something the government's doing for us. They put that on us as the tribal members. So work with your city or tribe, corporation if you're not sure of how to figure that out, or call me and we'll hopefully can figure something out. Then on your general information, these are mostly self-explanatory, but I want to clarify in section 32 when it asks, are you living in a house built with Housing and Urban Development Funds, HUD money? That's really referring to ABCP Regional Housing Authority. So if you have a house built by ABCP Housing, that's NAHASDA HUD funding, and that's what it's asking. It doesn't necessarily disqualify you, like I mentioned before. You answer yes if you did, as long as the house is more than 20 years old and you've paid off that mortgage, the monthly mortgage, and it's not under operation of the housing authority in question 33, then you could still be eligible potentially. Verse 34, don't say yes to down payment assistance because that's not a category we can offer right now, so just say no. Um, and then going down to question 36, if you're claiming disability for a family member or yourself, list the name of that family member there, and you also have to provide documentation to prove it. It can't just be somebody has a hurt back or they can't see out of one eye, unless if they of course have been seen medically and they've gotten documentation to prove that condition that they have. So that's page 3. Page 4 is my favorite page because it's the easiest, and this is just signing and dating it. If your spouse is available to sign and date, or if you're the spouse and you just filled in your spouse as the main applicant, um, you're a unit, so you can sign even if you weren't that first person listed, but you are the spouse. You guys are legally married and you want to sign. That would validate the application. And of course, dating it, we have to have this, otherwise we can't legally include the application in our performance report. And don't forget to date the application, preferably every page, but for sure the last page, both in the date section there and at the bottom. That's something we track. So thank you so much for watching and good luck. Good luck, but I also want to add putting this as the last slide of the presentation so you have the information to send your application to us. Again, there's the mailing, fax, email, and in-person delivery address. So that's where to send it to. Good luck and take care.